Isabel did my camera setup today. I just sat down on the sofa and she put all the parts around me up. So I'm surrounded by lights and stuff. One of them won't do a pretty color. It's decided it's going to be white. That's fine. So recently I went out to Dartmoor for a photography event held by Abigail Tinian. And the whole event was about going into Dartmoor and using prompts to try and give off an energy of like spirits and nature and portals and stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun. Um, During the trip, I made a film called Arc, which you can see on the main channel, and I'll put a link to that down in the description. We went with our friend Anna and a bunch of other people we hadn't met before, and like everyone was quite nice. It was the first time I'd done something like that, go out together and take photos, and I definitely think I'd do it again if the opportunity arises.
Right in the middle, do you want to be like taking up most of the frame?
Like 20 seconds.
Reveal.
I recently saw a production by Kayla Parker and Stuart Moore at the University of Plymouth. They did a production on the IBT, which is the Immersive Vision Theatre, of them going through the rivers around Plymouth and filming it on a 360 camera. And when I saw that as well, I was kind of like, okay, cool, I should make something in Plymouth. Because Plymouth is like quite like a beautiful area. It kind of feels like, why waste the opportunity? It's like if you're in London, you want to make something kind of like urban with graffiti and like a bit grungy. In Plymouth, I feel like the right thing to do is kind of make something Dartmoor-esque. The photography event was organized by Photo Now CIC, which I don't really know what CIC stands for. Do you know? What is a CIC? Community Interest Company. Type of limited company that's primarily focusing on benefiting the community. Okay. Well, I know Photo Now mostly because I go to events and take lots of photos, and then afterwards I'll see they took photos of an event as well, and it's kind of like, oh, who got the better shots? It's always them. But like it is kind of nice to like see like, oh, there's other photographers kind of floating around. I had been to Dartmoor once before, in university during my undergraduate education degree. We went to Dartmoor for an explore and kind of like a nature module of like why nature education is important for kids and stuff. And when we went there, we walked like along a river that was very like, maybe overgrown is not the right word, but like lots of like damp foliage and kind of like moss, and I don't know what you call the plants, but like they're very squishy to walk on. Do you know like they grow near like rivers and stuff, like a kind of like a padded?
Not sure.
Okay. So I was expecting kind of like a mushroom heaven originally when I saw this like I go on a Dartmoor trip, but the reality was way more flat than I expected. Bless you. But like that's not bad at all. Like I really like the idea of like going out to film something, having an expectation that like being completely destroyed. Like I think that's like a fun kind of like forcing you to like, as long as you still try and make something in those conditions, I think it's a cool way to force you to do something different. Also, by the way, if you want to see my thoughts in a more clear way, I'm actually like looking through my Medium article at the moment. This is the first time I wrote a Medium article like directly after making something. Because beforehand, it'd be months later, and I'd be like, okay, cool, I'm finally writing the Medium article on this. Whereas now that I've kind of caught up, I'm able to write about things like right afterwards, which it's cool in the sense that a lot of the details are fresh in my mind. I have a lot of the resources. I don't have to dig through the past files and be like, fuck, where's this photo? Oh, I need to get this date. Like all of that's right here already. But you lose out on the reaction. So on some of my Medium articles, I'll be like, people thought this about the piece, or the piece was featured in this event later on, and like you don't really get that if you're making an article that happens right afterwards. But it is useful for this for me to kind of be like, what the fuck happened during the event. But I know a lot of people aren't article readers. If you're like more into YouTube content, like I'm hitting both bases, so it's fun. Before we arrived at Dartmoor, I noticed this like really big pipe, what do you call pipe tower thing in the sky, and I was like, "What is that?" And we learned that it is a transmission tower for radio and TV. And like that was the first thing I noticed in the area. Like before going to the malls, like there's this overwhelming force that's kind of just like looking over the landscape. It's like it gave off the energy of like in the Lion King, where it's like, oh Simba, our land is everything that like the sun touches or some bullshit. And then what about the shadows? And so we don't talk about that. It was like the inverse relationship of like everything everywhere where you could see the tower kind of felt like it was influenced by the tower. And when we were walking on the moors, I would like turn to my right and the tower would keep being there. So I decided like for my film I was going to use this as being an antagonist in the film. Kind of like there's this weird force that you can't control coming from the tower. One of the interesting things about this trip was Abigail set up a bunch of prompts of like, oh, these are going to inspire you to take photos. But we looked at the prompts before we went out to the location, and that kind of created like a mood board effect of everything you looked at got shaped by these prompts a little bit, for me at least. So, for example, one of the prompts was like portals. And whenever I'd see a circle or I'd see like an archway, I'd kind of think like, oh, this is like a potential, like if you go through this archway on the other side you'll be in like an alternate dimension, or spirits could come through this portal from an underworld or something like that. And having like these multiple prompts before going into a location like definitely acted as some type of mood board for me, where there was an overall energy. It feels similar to like Christmas in a way, where like you go outside and there's Christmas music playing and all the shops are like selling Christmas themed things, and suddenly that makes it Christmas. Like Christmas could happen any time of the year if people are doing all this fanfare around it. And that's the same thing of like, by creating this atmosphere of spirituality and the moors having some type of like special energy, it kind of creates the moors having that special energy. And it also makes you think about people that like grow up there, because I'm South African. People that grow up around this area and hear all these like ghost stories about the moors growing up. Would they see the moors in a way that feels more intrinsically like creepy or kind of spiritual, because like they have that pre knowledge kind of like embedded in their brain. So using prompts in a way to kind of like cause people to have those feelings they wouldn't normally have them, I think is quite interesting. And I think you could do that for any type of like production, right? Like before you go to a play, give someone a handout. It's like, think about these 10 words. And I definitely feel that they would take away more of those types of themes from the play if they were thinking about those ideas beforehand. So it's a cool idea to play around with, I think. That's always my revenge as well. In terms of the weather, it wasn't too bad. We got rained on once.
The air was just kind of wet, miserly.
It was miserly.
Yeah.
No, but it did kind of start to rain a bit, right?
I don't know. Like it was yucky. Like it was enough to be like hide the cameras.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like we're like, okay, we're not taking photos now. We're not filming for a section because we don't want the cameras to get destroyed. So, it was way more destructive in that regard, of like it's stopping what you're doing. but it was kind of good in a way because we were like taking so much time photographing and filming things up to the base camp, like walking to them, that the rain kind of forced us to go there quickly, which means we had like more light to work with in the like the nicer area. So like it all worked out in the end. Also, Isabel's jacket fell apart, so she was hit by the elements more than we were. But yeah, everyone was nice on the trip. There were some people I definitely spoke to more than other people, but I think that's to be expected. There were a lot of people there from like different age groups, like some older people that spoke to other older people, some younger people that spoke to other younger people, which is like just normal, right? But it's one of those scenarios that if you keep going to photography events, I think you'd see a lot of those people again, and those are like a lot of the nice relationships I like building, of like, oh, we both like artsy entertainment, we both like an experimental performance, so we will go to experimental performance nights and like meet up, and like the first time you say hi to each other, the second time you say hi, how have you been, the third time you say like it's a really okay, I won't say that. Isabel like instantly like shook her head at me like you can't. Also, one of the photographers brought their dog, which I think was like a really good mood booster. We didn't need a mood boost, but like it was really nice to have like just like a little friendly dude walking around. Like, and I can understand why like groups of hikers and stuff like have a dog. Like it allows you to kind of like just like gush about something every once in a while, which is quite cute. Our base camp was Foginter Quarry, which is like an old stone quarry. That's what quarry means, right? Um, that like it's quite beautiful, I'd say, and there's like a lake nearby as well. Something that really like stood out to me was struggling to identify what was 100 years old and what was like 5,000 years old. Like the human perception of time is quite. We struggle without like any context clue to like know how old something is. So that kind of made me think about time and our perception of time, and like we're so certain that we're in the present now, and we know that the future's later, but the past we like don't really know like what happened or what happened where. And that makes you think about like, can we be as certain about the present, can we be as like certain about the future if the past is completely like up in the air in that. And it made me think about this spirit that's in the film, which is like me wearing a mask. um what timeline do they exist in? I kind of like I have this head canon on my own film, which I don't know if you're the director and you have a head canon. Does that just make it canon? Like that's a weird thing to think about. I don't think it does, but I like the idea that the themes in Disseminate and the themes in Arc kind of feel linked in a way. Uh, so in Disseminate, there's the whole thing of like once you make something, it kind of like leaves your body, and it kind of just exists out there on the internet. Like different versions of yourself exist each time you upload something, and how they kind of like live a life of their own and they kind of like move on. And in Arc, the spirit thing is kind of like in the electricity and kind of like moving around through time. So like, are these entities like you creating something for the internet, and this like folklore mimetic thing getting passed through the wires? Are they the same type of creature? It feels very like Japanese yokai of if you believe in it, it exists type of energy. Like the more people that pray to a god, the more powerful it becomes. And that's why it's important to kind of like upkeep a shrine and kind of respect things constantly, because like all these like lots of little spirits exist. And I kind of feel like that's an energy with creation as well. That like, for example, the Mona Lisa has energy because people believe it has value. You know, people believe it's an important piece of art, and therefore it is an important piece of art. Like this aura kind of like gets created around a creation. But then if you are the creation, like for example, if your face or like your image is part of like the internet creation, I'm not getting more powerful from that, but its existence and like its mirror copy of me is kind of like getting more powerful. If that makes sense. It's a weird thing. It's like it's all gibberish really, but it's an interesting thing to think about. The mask that's in the production was apparently made by Abigail um, when she was in school. It was either A levels or GCSE. I really like it, the mask, and that she made it like I love like inconsequential creation, in a sense of like you make something when you're a kid. You're like, oh, this means nothing, and then it gets used in something like later or something kind of important down the line. Like I really, really dig that. Like you've given something a second life, and also like the history of something is extended. Like, I don't know. That's cool to me.
Or it could be a skill or something that you learn and you kind of haven't used it, thought about it.
Yeah, and that's one thing like in my practice. Like Isabel said, I don't know if you could hear it, but like a skill as well that you learn from like a previous thing. It's kind of like all of this work you've done in the past actually like bears fruit more and more and more. It's like mushrooms, right? You have like a harvest of mushrooms, and then you kind of like throw it in the yard, and then a year later, mushrooms sprout again from this thing that you thought was dead and kind of like done with. You're constantly yielding fruit from, and I feel like a lot of skills are like that. You're like, oh, I learned it for this specific thing, but now in my other life, like I can use it again. So I think that's quite cool. I also decided to use her mask as like a chance prompt. I know it seems like arbitrary, like where you deciding chance is, but like that is chance in a way. There were all these different prompts, but this mask got handed to me, and I was like, okay, cool, this is what I'm using. You know, this type of restriction of like I could use all these different masks in different ways, but I'm gonna use the one that was given to me because that type of restriction, I think, kind of like forces you to be more creative in a way. For my for the film, I ended up using Old Lang Syne for the song because I wanted something kind of like folksy and English. I know it's Scottish, but kind of like UK esque that gave the energy of like people singing. So something that could have been passed down like the ages in a way. Like imagining all these people like celebrating events and celebrating scenarios, singing, and there's kind of like echoing across like the electricity over time. I wanted to be something kind of human. And one thing I like with the recording I got, a recording by Sonica, is they fuck up a little bit. Like some of the plucks and stuff kind of goes brang or ting, but it's not supposed to. And I really like that human quality. Like it's not like a perfect rendition. It's kind of like people trying, and that comes across I think as like way cooler, especially for that type of piece, for this type of piece, than is a perfect rendition of a song. Like that doesn't have the right energy. And the song's title means long, long ago, which I thought matches the whole of like when does the past like fit in? Like is this 100 years? Is this 5,000 years? So yeah, I thought that was quite cool. And what else is there to say? Let's see what babies are in here. We got this baby. We got this one. Gonna say hello. Hello. And we got this baby. Gonna say hello. Hello. We're making a video with them. Louis came over last night and we recorded the dialogue for it. The film's called Dire Dog. So I need to film a little bit more scenes and kind of like film this weird like dinosaur effect scene. But yeah, that should be done like in the next week and a half, maybe. So that's exciting. Eh? Are you an actress? Are you an actress? You're gonna unionize. You better not. Bye bye. Oh yeah, one more thing. I want to say thank you to Harry Hackham for taking this very cool photo of Isabel and I. Appreciate it. Thanks.
No.
Yo, cow. Bye, cow.